Joseph Muweru, who joins us for this very conversation. And I know, Wakili, you will be very helpful in terms of, getting us to understand what will be the legal ramifications of us getting ourselves into this space if the members of parliament are going to give it a nod, and especially in the housing aspect. And if they're not giving it a nod, then what next? Of importance is for us to engage someone who's in the housing sector and in the real estate world, George Boru, CEO, Mizezi Africa Homes, who joins us for this very conversation. George, I'll start with you. I remember the first time when the Uhuru presidency, was speaking about the Big Four agenda and housing at the heart of it. There was some essence of excitement,
Sure.
But of course a clarion call for them to involve the private sector.
Yeah.
And fast forward, maybe we did not get to establish the best of fruits out of this.
Yeah.
But here we are, the conversation has somehow changed, but not changed as such, because it's still towards making sure that Kenyans own homes, it's still towards making sure that Kenyans get job opportunities out of this. It's still towards making sure that we have enough homes for our people.
Yeah.
What do you make of the conversation today? Have we taken a drift that perhaps does not appear to be very clear, or maybe those of you who are in the real estate world are in agreement with what the government is proposing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you very much. You will appreciate the fact that affordable housing is a continuation of the Jubilee administration.
Yes.
And actually they borrowed it from the Vision 2030. And Vision 2030 is whereby we as a country, we are looking to be a middle income earner.
Yeah.
We want to be counted among those people who are self-sufficient, self-reliant. And from that Vision 2030, that is when they realized that affordable housing is one of the ways that we can make people to live in a middle-income country. And the countries that we are also benchmarking on, that is an area they have looked at people having homes.
Yeah.
And you will appreciate the fact that one of the basic needs of human is shelter.
Yes.
We have food, shelter, clothing. So shelter is basically housing. And housing is very crucial. Now, all that we need to do is now on the how.
Yeah.
We all appreciate the fact that it's necessary and it's important, and we have a deficit, because when that statistics was being done, it was said that 2 million units were needed, and every year 200,000 units are needed based on the population increase, based on the rural-urban migration and all those other factors.
Yeah.
So there is that need. Now the question should be, how do we go about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the question is not we don't need it, it's how are we
Go
going
about
to
it.
do
And I'll come back to you on that very same question. So prepare answers as to whether then the government is doing it the right way with the proposals that we have or not. Wakili, at the end of the day, this conversation will involve legal minds for us to get directives, as to what direction we're taking. I remember, we have had that conversation with the gentlemen that were here.
Yeah.
And one of them was saying that, well, if this is not well thought, if this is going to be implemented as is, then he is afraid that the government will find itself, into very many legal battles at the end of the day. You have been here, observed how Kenyans are involving themselves into these very conversations. What do you make of it?
I think Kenyans first have to understand that the genesis of this conversation. Article 43 of the Constitution places the burden on the government to make sure we have what we call as accessible and affordable housing.
Yes.
And how does the government come to do that? They have to tax us at the end of the day. No government would pay. Actually, when we talk about the government, we are the government. And us as Kenyans, we should be very clear that this money will not come from anyone's pocket. So at the end of the day, I think the government is doing the right thing. The only issue maybe will be implementation. And then I think Kenyans also have a trust deficit with their government.
Yeah.
Projects have begun. Boma Yangu was there. People still don't believe some don't have their houses yet. So I think the only issue is implementation, but the government is in the right course. And also Kenyans have to understand that when we brought in this Kenya Kwanza government, under page 19 of their manifesto, one of the things that they committed to do is provide proper housing. And if you listen to the government and how the government is trying to bring out this thing, it's bringing out the housing agenda as an employment agenda. And that is why you will note that even in this current budget, there's a proposal for, I think, 7.3 billion to go towards housing. So the government is in the right track. However, now the implementation maybe might be the issue.
Right.
So that is why Kenyans are having the conversation currently.
All right. And in all this, where are the stakeholders? And I mean, first of all, we begin with that question of, what are the plans in terms of making sure that this is well implemented? We all agree that there's that need. And George is constantly reminding us of the importance of owning a house, and some of the affordable plans that are in existence for people to get to own a house. But here we are, the way the government is approaching this. What do you think of that?
Yeah. Thank you very, very much. You will appreciate the fact that the problem we have is the problem of the capital. We, as a private developer, as Mrs. Africa Homes Limited, we have been in this sphere, and we basically understand what are the challenges. And one of the challenges, like we have faced as Mrs. Africa Homes Limited, being taken as a pilot project, is the issue of cash flow and capital. You find that at times you have to depend on the customers to make the payments. And you find that these same customers have so many other obligations which they are undertaking. And for them to be given financing is a big problem. And the challenge the government is currently having is getting the financing even to kickstart. Leave alone to construct, to kickstart. That is where we have the problem. And that is why the government is looking for ways to at least have a source of capital to kickstart this project. And that is a problem that we as private players are having.
Right.
Our customers, they need the home, and everybody appreciates that somebody needs a shelter. But now, how do we finance these things? That is a problem. We, as Mrs. Africa Homes Limited, we have had challenges. Our customers, they need the house. They need to be financed by the banks, which are the financial institutions. But for you to be given a loan, a facility, has been a problem.
Right.
So the problem, we start by dealing with the financing issue.
And so you suppose that the government is not taking the right approach, or maybe is not coming into this with, understanding as to what really is the main problem and how to...
The government clearly understands. That's why they are trying to look for ways to fund it. They started by saying 3% levy, so that people who are being deducted that money can be put in a consolidation. They get that capital, they start the construction, because we need money at the end of the day. And
practically speaking, do you suppose this monies that the government is talking about would eventually be enough to get someone to own?
Actually, it's not enough. It's actually barely enough. What we need to do is to create that environment. What the government is trying to do is to create that environment so that we can also attract foreign direct investors. We need to have so much money for this agenda, but the money we have to show that even the people who would come and invest, that we are serious. And how do you show you are serious? For us, Mrs. Africa Homes Limited, we need to see your commitment. You can't say, I want a house that is worth 5 million, and you have nothing. For sure, you don't have any commitment, you don't have any initial amount you can put on the table, you'll not be taken to be serious. But if the government is in a position to get money from whichever way they are going to use, be it the 3% levy, be it the 1.5 which was now proposed, whichever way, because the money has to come from the people. The government does not have its own money. It has to be taken from somewhere.
All right. Yes, you're just
I wanted to say something. And there is this discussion that the government has been talking about, and just picking it up from where he has left, the issue of the government having a place or an investor having a hope that there is money to start these projects. And actually, there is a time that the president talked about this thing, and he said this money is acting as insurance and giving assurance to any investor that is coming that, yes, we have money, you can start your project, we have money where we can pay, we will pay you from, and then people will get housing. So I think at the end of the day, maybe the issue that we might have is how now the government is approaching the whole thing. But the idea is well thought.
And yes, how the government is approaching it is fairly is a conversation that we
Yes.
should have.
Yes.
We have seen people challenging this
Yes.
in court.
Yes.
We have seen people arguing that this is not constitutionally right,
Yes.
that there are some elements of it that, are against what the Constitution speaks out. What are the legal possibility or prospects of, this, facing a shoot down, or perhaps how do they redeem themselves before it gets to that level?
Legally, as we say, taxation should be one of the things is equity, and that is why you have noticed after there was a lot of hullabaloo around the issue of the 3% levy, the government decided to convert this into a tax, and different tiers are being taxed different. So I don't see legally this issue of housing going down in any court of law. I think the only thing is the government has followed the procedure, which is Parliament enacting the whole thing. So we are waiting to see the decision the courts will have on the case that Senator Okiya Mutata has taken. But I don't think on this issue, especially of housing, I don't think the courts are going to bring it down, because again, the Supreme Court has spoken about the need of government to provide what they have called adequate and affordable housing.
Right.
So you cannot tell the government that the process will be progressive, and yet again you're telling it you will not implement it that way. So at the end of the day, I think the courts will have to balance between the right to housing and what people are complaining about. But at the end of the day, I don't see any court shooting this down.
Okay.
Especially on the issue of proposal to have affordable housing. Yes.
Judge, one of the key things that has, gotten the president trying so much so to sell this to the people is his argument that it's going to create employment. In the creation of employment, my understanding then would be that also you who are in the real estate sector are looking forward to opportunities. Just how well are you connected, or are you, joined on this in terms of, perhaps the government looking at working with the private sector, maybe engaging them? Perhaps were there conversations to this even before, the government reached, at an agreement or at a point where they said this should be incorporated in the finance bill?
Yeah, thank you very much. One thing that you need to appreciate is the fact that every coin has two sides. You need to look at this issue of affordable housing from two perspectives. You need to look at it from the perspective of we need foreign direct investors and even local investors investing in the affordable housing. Because we have so many people who have so much money, but very few people are putting that money in the affordable housing. And affordable housing is a very lucrative business. It's only that some of our policies and some of the policies that have been made around there, most of them, they are not implemented, or they are vague, or there's no clear way that even foreign investors can come and see how are we going to put our money here and what are we going to get back. Because you need to look at it from one side of the investor.
Right.
The investor is looking at, am I going to get my return on investment? Yeah? So that is one way. And you need to show this investor that once you invest your money, we even have ready working capital, which are the human beings. They are people. And because Kenya, we have so many people who are unemployed, which the government can use as an asset, but at the moment it's a risk, hazard, because when people are idle, that's why we have so much insecurity. Now you are telling these young people, here, there's an opportunity for you to be employed. You are starting to prepare these people psychologically that we are bringing affordable housing and you are going to be employed. That one, what it does to you as a president, you even get to win those votes.
Right.
Because those are people who are jobless. Now you have given them jobs. But on the other side, you're also looking at the investor. He's looking at now the employment part as working labor. We have labor. When you are in a capital, you have land, human capital, and you also have this other capital, money and what have you. And that is what we need now to gel, so that we are able to realize this big vision.
Okay. So how do they ensure that this then is not hot air and that really it's going to be a shot at making sure that Kenyans have affordable housing in as much as it faces a lot of, questions?
Yeah, questions. And I think what the government currently needs to do is provide for proper structures. And we mean proper structures. That is, if from the laws that are there, let them strengthen them. Let the land. There was an amendment to the Lands Act, and there was a tribunal that was introduced. It's called the Lands Acquisition Tribunal. I think also the government needs to operationalize that, because at the end of that, that is now where litigation will come from. Because at the end of the day, government does not have enough land. It will have to compulsorily acquire some land from people. So I think proper structures, registration, and proper policies. And if they do that, I think this project might also outrun the current administration. But lack of structures, it's just going to come down as the big four came.
As the big four came. All right. So, Ms. Izzy, Africa Homes, very important that we also get to know what are some of the things that you are doing right now. Because, well, beyond talking about the housing levy and what it is that is the plan for the government, also people just in a bid of getting to own homes should understand what are some of the plans that are out here. Then it helps them, create a balance in understanding what is being offered to them and what would be a better option.
Thank you. My brother has mentioned about compulsory acquisition, and in Kenya, there's something called willing buyer, willing seller.
Yes.
And that is a policy that has been in place. And I'm telling you, people have so much huge chunks of land and they are willing to sell. It's only that they may not have found a buyer. And in housing also there have been trust issues.
Yes.
So you find that somebody has land, but they're not willing to dispose unless there is that ready money. And nobody has that ready money. And we also want to thank God, because like we, Mzizi Africa Homes Limited, we have gotten some of those huge chunks of land in Malindi, and people are selling at a very affordable of prices. And we have a very good offer of only 350. You get yourself one whole acre, and the title is there. You'll get your own title. There, people are planting pineapples, watermelon, cashew nuts, and for sure, agriculture has been the backbone of our country. And that is where we need to go back. We need to start supporting our agriculture. So much we are concentrating so much on the food crops as opposed to the cash crops. We need to go back to the cash crops. Cash crops, these are food which we can export comfortably. Like right now we are importing so much rice, importing so much maize. These are things that we should be exporting. By exporting, we get so much, even dollars and foreign currencies into our economy, because we are now as a country in a cash crunch, because we do not have exports. We are having more of imports than exports. We need to increase on our exportation, and agriculture is one way to go about it. So encouraging people come get a huge chunk of land. Then once we do that, the same people are the same people who are going to get these homes and be able to sell them comfortably. That's how we are going to create a good economic country as Kenya.
You speak of that, and also it reminds me of how you've constantly said that, in this process of willing buyer, willing seller, also in the process of, me trusting you or entrusting you to perhaps set up a home for me, there's always that need to involve, the person who's going to own his home at the end of the day.
Very important.
Do we see a scenario where in this project that the government is presenting to us that we're going to have that luxury or we're going to have that privilege, because it's crucial and it's very, very important, because people asking, okay, fine, you're going to give me a home. Where exactly? You're going to get this on, you're going to buy this piece of land. Where is that? What if my workplace is on this side? And, at this point, the available houses are at this side. I mean, that confusion.
Actually, basically, it's very easy.
Yeah.
The work of the government is to come up with policies and to make sure those policies are followed.
Okay.
It should be the work of the private developers even to do that work. All that the private developers need is support. We need to be supported, and to be supported is by policies which are good, is to be supported so that those people who are willing to lend, there's so many people who are willing to lend to be business people or people who are doing business at a very reduced interest rate. And you find that at times you need to go to the bank you are given maybe a local LC, local credit, a bank guarantees you, but you find that even our banks are not ready to guarantee people that are doing business in that country.
Okay.
These are some of the things that the government needs to address so that we can have cash flow in our country. And it can only work when the private developer is supported. The government on itself is not in a position because it has so many other things to do. And for the government to do the work that the private needs to do, there needs to be so many policies which sometimes contradict what the government does. Because the government, its work is basically to provide security and a conducive environment.
Yeah.
Simple.
So the private developer, yes.
On that issue, again, that is not where the problem is.
Yeah.
Where will I get this house? Let's say I work on Kiambu Road, or I work in Kiambu Road, and the house that I'm being given is somewhere in in Kitengera or something. So I think that is now where, as the previous panel has said, is government is failing in communication. Where will I get this house? Do I have a freedom of choosing this house? And if I don't have, then does it mean that after the houses are okay, do I have the freedom of selling this house once those houses comes up? And those are the things the government need to address. Also, we are yet to see what approach these houses will take, because we are them being apartments, maybe they will go via the Sectional Properties Act, the new one. The government also needs to come out clearly on that. And at the end of the day, I think the government should allow any Kenyan who wants to purchase that land to involve their advocates for them to facilitate the process until they get the ownership documents to that house.
And that can be quite confusing, George, because then you have built a structure, on this particular land. Perhaps you've had a chance to work with a person that, owns the structure, or maybe sometimes they've just entrusted you with their money and they have said, I want this, I want a 2-bedroom at this place, I am okay with that very place. What are the legal, provisions, or what are the legal processes that, one has to go through until now they officially get to own this house? Because sometimes you're not told, and then when you get yourself into it, you've paid 200,000, now you're told, well, you have to pay this fee for the lawyer, you have to pay this fee, and then they're wondering, I thought that once I have my 3 million, I am good to go. I won't have to do, I don't know, a transfer of what and everything. So what goes into that?
Sure. Yeah, thank you very much. For sure, we have been acting on the trust. And basically, affordable housing, especially something like off-plan, has been so much trust-based argument. Yeah. And you find that the problem is because there are no clear policies and there are no clear laws and structures which govern how real estate operates. And that's why we are encouraging the government to come up with policies. Kenya is a liberal market, it's a liberal country, which means if you come with so many laws, you end up stifling the economy. And what you need to do is to create that good and conducive environment, because you cannot also force somebody to buy a house in a place they are not comfortable with. They have to, maybe somebody comes from a certain area, you are comfortable, having your home, retirement home near your rural home. So if you force people to have houses all over, again, it's a problem. So what we need to do is to encourage the government to come up with the policies of enabling the private sector to thrive. Because at the moment, there are very few people who are doing well, and Mrs. Africa Homes Limited is one of them, but we have to undergo so much challenges. You have to really be trusted. You work by trust.
Right.
And you find that once somebody does not trust you, they start saying, I want to withdraw my money. Now you can imagine, we are taking money, taking them to the ground, then somebody else is coming, give me back my money because I have gotten a trust issue. So we are using more of emotions than logic.
Right.
And logic here is by setting proper structures. What now we are doing is emotions. We are just using emotions. If you feel you don't want to continue, there's so much emotions. And if the government is to borrow the emotions, for sure it's not going to work.
Right.
But if they come up with proper structures, if you want to buy a house, this is how you get into this scheme. If you want to withdraw, we just regulate just the way we have banks. You don't just go to the bank. The bank, if the government can come up with something like the CBK to regulate now the housing,
Yeah.
and allow the private developers to do the job. If you defraud customer who had paid you, you don't give them the house and you do not give them back their money.
There's a problem.
There's a remedy.
Yes.
This is what should be done. But so many people are losing money and nothing happens. Somebody has this company, they see they are not going to deliver, they rebrand to another one.
Yes.
Like, we need to come up with the proper laws to regulate the private sector, and the government will be happy.
Wakili.
On the issue of the legal, what someone should do, I think at the end of the day, as I have encouraged in another show, is the requirement for a person to do their due diligence.
Yeah.
I cannot just come and sell you a dream and you just buy it blindly. At the end of the day, these companies that are conning people, there is a story behind it. So at the end of the day, just do your due diligence well. And also, I always encourage anyone who is purchasing land or property in Kenya, just get yourself a lawyer, an advocate of the High Court, for them to take you through the whole process. And we at Mugweru Ndege and Company Advocates, we do that very well and make sure that our clients are well protected. Again, we have to repeat this. It's all, first you do your due diligence, and then the next step is proper structures in the agreement. If you have a watertight agreement, you will be protected.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well put. So, of course, how do they get a hold of you? How do they get a hold of you before we close?
Yeah, thank you very much. You can visit us. Our offices are based in Westlands, opposite Sarit Center, this Africa Homes Limited. Then you can also find us on our website, www.miziziafricahomes.com, or you can give us a call on 020-790-2215.
All right. Mugweru.
On us, we are located at Biashara Plaza, just opposite Bazaar. You can get us on email at mugwerundege@gmail.com, or you can use our line at 0729-643-447.
Well, there's so much to know about these processes of owning, land and homes. And so sometimes it's good to engage as experts, begin the conversation at an early stage, even when you don't have money. And then by the time you're getting to that space of acquiring a piece of land or a home, then at least you have basic information and, legal information for that matter, so that you are well protected. So, as they have said, the gentlemen are perhaps the very same people or the best people to help you. Check them out. Thank you so much. Last speaker, Joseph Mugweru, who's an advocate of the High Court and also largely focusing on matters land, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And of course, we also have Mizizi Africa Homes CEO, that is George Mburu. Thank you so much as well for speaking to us. The time to own a house, the time to own land is now. And the beauty of it is that there are lots of arrangements that are available for you to begin small, and then eventually your future is well protected. We shift gears to a different conversation on matters education and just how then we connect this to AI. So do not go anywhere.